I need to point this out to you because some of you missed this day when Mr. Hirsch already talked about it. Chris, and I am frustrated because it's annoying. If you overpull the measuring tape past, right, this says it's 26 feet, and you just start running along, and then you lock it up, and then it jams the spring, and Mr. Hirsch has to fix it, that's super irritating. And then you look dumb because you're wandering around with this. Okay? Please don't act like a fool. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't do this. Don't do this. There's no reason why you should do this. Don't pull measuring tapes and like run around with them. We are going to be going outside today, but if I see this happen, I'm going to cut your finger off. Okay?
If you're measuring something, you're measuring a long distance, and you have like a 25-foot tape measure, why don't you just pull it out to say like, 20 feet, because you got to move it along anyhow, and then all you got to do is multiply the number of times by 20, or add 20 together that number of times, but you don't have to do this. Sometimes you can fix it, and sometimes you can't. Okay, don't be like that.
That was your first thing. Second thing. Thank you to those of you who understand that you have your math book out when you come to class. That's nice. We are doing stuff. Today. We are going to do a warm-up. We're going to talk about homework, and then we're going to skedaddle, and we're going to go outside. No, we're not building, but we're doing stuff.
You have a big chair.
Hey. Oh my gosh, was that sitting on your table? Checking homework. Warm up. The quicker we do this.
That'd be period A.
For me, I don't have 5, 6, 7, 8. I just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Because guess what? I do the same thing, right? We see each other at the end of the day every day.
Yeah.
I call you period 4. Okay. In your notebooks, please. Hey, well, just everyone, just. Okay. Question. How long will the rafter be? How long will the rafter be if it has if it has a 6-inch overhang? When I'm talking about a rafter, I'm talking about, oh my gosh. How come I can draw lines one way but not the other way? Boy, don't be cray. Okay, well, that's so frustrating. Okay. All right, let's just whatever. Ugh. 23 degrees. The king post is 26 inches. When I'm talking about the rafter, any guesses at which part we know I'm talking about? It shouldn't be a guess, really. Like, hopefully, maybe like an educated, like, I know. Educated. What? Hypotenuse, sure. I'll take a math term. Right, this part. And, of course, right, I'm telling you, it has a 6-inch overhang. I'm talking about that little jib there. Okay. Go math. 33 through 38, have it out, make sure it's done. Don't try and show me half-done stuff. And hey, listen, please. Ethan. Hey, I know you guys are talking math, but I'm going to interrupt for a second. Then you can come back. You'll have another chance in about 2 minutes. Okay. So, if we're trying to figure out how long that rafter is going to be, starting from the 23-degree angle, the hope would be this. When we started learning trig, this type of stuff, it might have felt a little bit fuzzy. That's kind of what happens in your brain as it's trying to, like, neurons are trying to make connections and your synapses are firing. Things feel a little fuzzy and you feel a little insecure and unsure and you're like, I think this is how I'm doing it. Am I doing it right? And then the more times you practice and the more times you get it right, those pathways in your brain are created and you start to feel more confident and things start to feel easier because you're not learning as much. Okay? That's the goal. So you should be at a spot where you're starting to feel, in the very least, like you can set up a good equation. You know whether you're using sine, cosine, or tangent, and you should be able to identify that. That's where you should be. If you're not there, you should probably come and stay after school. Not even after school. During flex, because school doesn't end until 3:15. Okay? You can come during flex today, blah, blah, blah. All right. So, from the 23 degrees, 26 is what side? This is, so I use, beautiful. So, the other thing I'm going to point out, also, I'm just going to warn you now. I warned the other class a little late. You guys technically kind of have a quiz today. It's a group quiz. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Okay. But sine, we know, is opposite over hypotenuse. It's opposite over hypotenuse. I can't do hypotenuse divided by opposite because that's not the ratio. You have to do it in that order, right? So, ka, toa, you have to do it in that order. You can't just like willy-nilly start dividing stuff, okay? So, I have to do it as opposite divided by hypotenuse, 26 divided by x. This was the problem that we worked on last class. Some of you, actually, I'm just not even going to show you this. Does anyone want to see another way to do it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Easier depends on what makes sense to you. So I'll go through it the way we talked about Wednesday, and then I'll show you this alternate way, and you can pick your poison. Okay? So, the way we talked about it last class, there was a few thoughts that we had to go through. The first thought that we had to go through was this set. What does that say right there, mathematically? What does that say?
26.
Beautiful. 26 divided by x. Our normal trig ratios, we were multiplying by 26 on some of the other ones, the first ones we did. Here, I can't multiply by 26 because it's not in the denominator. So the solution was, well, hey, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, flip or do it, okay? So in my head, I'm like, x is on the bottom. I'm not cool with that. So I'm going to flip that fraction. If I flip that fraction, I would write it as x over 26. That's great. The thought process in my head goes like this. Okay, I flipped one side. Of course, mathematically, if I flip one side, I have to flip the other side. But if I'm trying to flip this side, then I run into the problem of, well, heck, that's not a fraction. So I make it a fraction by putting it over 1, and then I do the flip, and I call it 1 over sine of 23. Okay? And at this point, now that I have it as x over 26, now that I have the 26 in the denom, short for denominator. Okay, now that it's there, it says divide. Tommy, don't be jealous when people laugh at my jokes instead of yours, dude. You don't have to be like that. It's kind of just saying. Tommy's just jelly. It's all right. All right. Divided by 26. The opposite. Multiplying by 26. Did you guys get lost? Oh no. So, here now I'm going to now I can multiply by 26 because this says x divided by 26. So the opposite of dividing by 26 is multiplying by 26. Okay, so I'm allowed to now multiply both sides by 26. I'm multiplying the numerator, the top. And the whole point and the whole reason I took forever talking about this on Wednesday was because the point here, Josephine, pick up your head. The point here is that 26 divided by 26 makes what magical number? 1. That's the whole point, is that these two 26 over 26's cancel each other out. So that I'm left with my answer, you can write it, and this is what we were doing last time. You can write it like this. equals x, and then put chunk into your calculator. Oh gosh, I do stupid stuff. And you get 66.5 equals x. Great. So then, how long is the actual rafter? Don't say 66 inches, homie. Wee-hoo. Okay. 72.5 inches. Great. Okay. Now, if you feel cool and you're like, yep, we learned that way Wednesday, I practiced that way, I like that way, I'm feeling good. If you're there, then feel free to just ignore the next portion. Ignore doesn't mean interrupt, though. It just means, like, if you tune out a little bit. Well, I'm not sure. So, another way that we can think about it. Another way we could think about it. It still would be starting with the same jipperdo. Okay, so still starting with the sine of 23 is equal to 26 over x. If you are someone who prefers using the trig tables, if you prefer using a trig table, this way might make a little more sense to you, maybe. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Okay, but here's what I would say. One of the things that trips us up is that we kind of get confused that sine of 23 is just a number, right? It's just a number. It's the ratio of opposites of hypotenuse off of a 23-degree angle. Look at a chart. What's sine of 23? Someone who has one. 3907. Okay, so the first thing is I'm just going to stop writing sine because some of us are like, why? There's too many words in my equation. I don't like it. Okay, but it's still equal to 26 over x. Now the other thing we can do is you can actually, from right here, if you liked the idea of multiplying by whatever's on the bottom, because that's what you were doing in the other types of equations, if you were like, okay, well, I'm just multiplying by the bottom of this fraction, I can do that. I'm allowed to multiply by x. Okay, because if right here, this says 26 divided by x, if I multiply both sides by x, whatever x is, whatever it comes out to be, we already know the answer. 66 divided by 66 is what? 1. Anything, no matter what x is, anything divided by itself will be 1. So the x's will cancel out, and this will be my equation. So you can just keep it the same way as before and multiply by the denominator. If x happens to be on the denominator, whatever. I'm just multiplying by whatever's on the denominator. And in that regard, I would then have 0.3907 x is equal to 26. And in our heads, some of us get a little bit like, ugh, I don't know what to do from that. But really, I think you do. Okay, because it's the same as like if it said this, right? If I had this, what would I do? Yeah, I would, don't say 12. I would divide by 2 and I would get, hey, yeah, there it is. Okay, and I would get 13, right? I would just divide by that 2, all good. Same thing here, even though it's an ugly decimal. Even though it's an ugly decimal, that still says times x. So if it's times x, I'm going to divide, right? Because the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm just going to divide both sides by my decimal. 3907. Who's that? The principal. You lost it, huh? Okay, so if I divide, I have 26. What should I get? Hey, what should I get? 66.5. Hey, it works. Okay, and I get, of course, the same thing, 66.5. Now, everyone tune back in, please. Everyone tune back in if you've lost you. If you feel like that made a little bit more of a connection in your brain, not even if you don't fully understand it, but you're like, oh, that seems, I kind of like that better. then come chat with me and I'll give you a nice long explanation, as long as you want it to be. If you would like to hear more about this method, I'll gladly talk about it with you. Okay? Yeah.
So it's not 72 and a half inches?
No, I'm sorry. It is. I didn't add the 6 that time.
No, so there is a, so the number that you get is 66.547.
Yeah,
So
we just
6.6.
found it.
I hear what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying, actually. Can I talk to you about it during flex? Okay. I hear what you're saying. We'll talk about it. Okay. 33 through 38. You guys, we're going to move quickly. I want to get out and give you guys the most time as possible on your quiz. I need these conversations to be focused. I'm only going to give you 5 minutes. That's not enough time for you to talk about the problems and then turn into a crazy person. Okay, so 30, that's like a minute per problem. So talk about each problem, each process, the solution. 5 minutes, ready, set, go. A question about slope. And the other thing is that we don't really use percentages per se, right? Like I don't say you can have a slope, it's saying the slope of the road is 4.34%, but when we're actually talking rise over run, that's going to be, we need it as the decimal. How do I turn a percentage? Hint, it's in the word, percent. Per means divide, cent means 100. So how do I turn a percent into a decimal? Divide by 100, beautiful. I divide by 100, I get 0.0434. So that's the number I'm working with. Okay, that's the number I'm working with. 4.34% is this number. Okay, step 1. Step 2, anytime, and this is a big hint for today, anytime we're talking about these problems, you should be drawing it out. Drawing the problem is a good first step. And it tells you that it's the overpass or the ramp or whatever we're talking about is going to rise up 33 feet. So I know that my rise over run has to equal 4%. My rise over run has to equal 4%. So my rise is 33. My rise divided by whatever the run is has to equal this number. Funny, that's the exact same problem that we just did. Okay, that's the same problem I just did. I'm going to make this a fraction. I'm going to flip them both over. And then I'm going to say that my answer here is, flip, times by 33 on both sides. So that my answer would be 33 divided by that decimal, which gives me 760 feet. You guys can see that all okay, right? That's perfect?
Great.
Right, so I have my fraction rise over run. That's where this came from again. The rise over the run is going to equal 33 rise over run. That was the slope. Yeah. Did you get the same thing?
Yeah.
Great. There are several different ways to do it. If you, and this is a great example. If anyone has a question, I would love to hear your explanation. Or if you are not sure, you're like, Ms.Stolte, that sounds stupid, or I don't understand it, ask Austin, because he probably has maybe a way that you understand better. If we weren't going outside today, I would hear you feel, but I'm going. Yeah. We're doing 37? Okay, 37. I'm going to draw a pyramid. The base edge. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to take this. We're going to, view the inside. We're going to view the inside. Okay. Right? So, that's my pyramid. I'm going to draw the little section in here. So, I'm just going to draw, this. Okay? So, if I just, chopped the pyramid in the middle. All right? That would be this triangle. And the question's asking me for the height. That's what the question's asking me for. And it tells me the edge of the pyramid is 754 feet. All right, it tells me that this is 754 feet or foots. It tells me the angle, right? It tells me that angle is 51.8 degrees. And if the whole thing is 754, what's half the thing? I agree, 377. Determine the height of the pyramid. So I'm going to redraw that triangle again, just so we have it nice and clear. So the question is saying, what's the height? Here's the angle, and then it's 377 feet. Right? So 3 versions of how I got to my final triangle. Okay. Looking at that angle, 51.8. H is what side? This is what? Adjacent. OA. TOA. So I'm going to write tangent of 51.8 degrees is equal to the opposite divided by the adjacent. It's nice, right? So again, whatever's on the denominator, I'm going to multiply by that. So multiply by 377 on both sides. Whoops. Toss that bad mamma jamma in your calculator, and you get that 479 feet is the height of Das Pyramid. Huh? Oh. I just forgot. Am I speaking German? Feeling German. My last name's German. Okay. A quick note. So let's think about, you've heard about the pyramids. We can see in that picture, it's how tall? How tall is that pyramid? 479 feet. We are about to go outside and measure the height of the light poles on the football field. Some people got that they were like 500 feet.
Dude, we can do that.
Hold on. No. You may not. Okay. This is how tall a huge arse pyramid is. Okay? Or what, Miss Hershey, what's the city girl? What's it?
441 feet.
Okay, big pink building downtown? That's 441 feet tall. Our lights on the football field, not taller than that. Just, side note. Just, yeah, in a minute. Okay, next thing. I'm going to give you, so we're done with that. I'm going to give you a quick overview right now of how you're going to use this tool. And then I'm going to give you your quiz, and then we're going to go outside. Your quiz is outside, okay? So, you might want to pay attention to this part. We are going to pretend, well, we're going to make our own makeshift, it's called a clinometer. It measures the angle of elevation. So really, you're going to be looking alongside this part of the protractor. We're going to use a weight to measure the angle. In order to set it up, you need to put this right in the middle. So you don't have to wind it through the hole on the protractor, but you do need to wrap it so it's fairly tight. You don't have to wrap it a bunch of times. You will have some extra string, but when you are hanging level, okay, ignore this piece, ignore that piece. When you're hanging it level and parallel to the ground, what's that string going to be at? 90. So listen carefully, please. If I'm at 90, what you're going to do is you're going to look along the top of the protractor. It's going to be right at your eye level. Your height is a factor. Nope. If it's at 90, so if it's at 90 degrees and I look up until the top of my protractor is in line with the top of the light pole. And when it's in line with it, if my protractor is now at 60, right? So let's review from 90. And then I look up and it goes to 60. What's the angle of elevation?
30.
I was at 90. 90 was my zero. It's my starting point. I went from 90, went to 60. My angle of elevation is 30 degrees. Let's do one more just to make sure our brains are fresh to death. If I'm at 90 and I'm looking at it and then it goes to 75, 15. Okay, so change. That's how you're going to use this. I'm going to give you your quiz right now. I want you to read it as a group. While you're reading it, I'm going to pass out your materials. Quick reminder, how I give you the materials, Finn, let's not do that. How I give you the materials is how I want the materials back. Got it? Okay. We're going to go outside. So you're not screwing around. We're going to go down to the field. You can use any of the lights around the field. I will also point out that there's kind of a fine line. If you stand right next to the thing, you're not going to be able to get a good reading. Two things. You're going to need to measure, right? So when you're holding your clinometer, you'll hold it right around your eyes. You'll measure up. I would just hold it up so it stays as accurate as possible, and I would have someone else read the angle. If you try and hold it and do this, it's a pretty fine little distance in the angle. So have someone else read the angle, freeze where you are. You're going to measure the distance from your feet to the pole. You also are going to need to measure this distance, right? The same way we added the rafter length. If you are measuring from here, right, you're measuring the height from your arm up the pole, and you're going to miss about 5 feet. Think about it, okay? If you're going to work on the A-level problem, do this. Everyone needs to do the C-level problem first. Then you could add the B or the A to it. A-level, just make sure you choose a pole where you can see the whole shadow. Measuring tapes up here, 1 per person. You're only bringing your paper or pencil, don't bring your stuff, right? Bring a calculator, paper, pencil. These are due at the end of the period. 20 minutes, go!